Okay, this is a quick video walkthrough of the Minima. I've taken the water tank cover off, which there's a couple of screws on the bottom there. Once you've taken the case off, the top and the case, you undo two screws on the bottom and the whole water tank carrier unit lifts out. I'll show you the unit here. The reason I was doing that was to modify it. This is the water tank unit, and I had to cut a slot at the top corner, as you can see, where there were two holes because the new pipes I was fitting wouldn't fit through the holes. So what you've got here is a twin boiler machine. You've got a 2.3 litre service boiler, very, very large service boiler. That's for your hot water and your steam through a couple of copper pipes, and the ones around the other side of the machine. This is a 0.8 litre brew boiler. There's the top copper thermosiphon tube. This is the expansion valve. This is what regulates the pressure. This may not be the final valve fitted. In fact, it probably won't be because it's not as easy. You can't adjust it. You can adjust it, but it's not easy. Whereas there are valves you can adjust through the top of the case, and if one of those can be fitted to have adjustment of brew pressure without removing the case top is obviously desirable. But anyway, that's the expansion valve. Hot water here is fed by a PTFE pipe. It doesn't need a plastic pipe. Steam is fed by copper, just to give the slightly wider bore so there's not restrictions. On the top of the brew boiler here as well is your temperature sensor, limit stat here, as I say, outgoing thermosiphon loop, and the incoming one is near the bottom there. This is one of the SSRs that fires up the steam boiler. Now, one thing that you'll notice that's been done, I hope, is that all the electronics are kept below the boilers at the bottom of the machine. So this is your steam boiler, the hottest part, and this here is just the display. There's no computer electronics in there. It's just a ribbon cable and some display digits, which aren't really affected by the heat. And when we go down here, here's one of the Guy car boxes. Here's another one. This is the brains of the machine, and this is all kept down at the coolest part of the machine that it can be and doesn't receive a lot of heat. I've done some temperature measurements around the top, and it reaches about 75, 1 centimetre above the steam boiler, 60 around here, maybe 65-ish above the brew boiler. Down here is much lower, in the sort of 40s and 50s, so electronics are good there. Let's say good sized brew boiler, 0.8 litre, that's the sort of size it needs to be. Nice thick cabling. In fact, this cabling is thicker than it needs to be for UK usage. So my assumption here is that this is also to allow it to be used in the US as well. That's just a guess. You've got your pin switch backs at the back there. Reaching things isn't too bad. You can get it down to this within sort of 5 minutes or so and reach most things, most of the electronics. If you want to change the pump, sure, it's tucked right in the front there, but you can actually reach the pump mounting screws from the bottom of the machine, and probably if you loosen out your electronics box, you should be able to wiggle the pump out, put it back in, screw the screws back, and then put the electronics box back. So it shouldn't be too difficult. Yeah. Now, please bear in mind this is an alpha machine, so things are not always going to be quite as neat. But the boilers are mounted well. I'll try and let you see some of that. They're mounted on multiple posts at the bottom, multiple steel post 3 on that boiler, and a couple on that boiler brackets, which means they're very, very secure. And in fact, this machine was dropped by the couriers, really badly dropped. The boiler standoffs aren't bent, and the boilers hadn't moved position, which is a common fault that can happen. All that happened was this steel frame bent at the corners, and I had to straighten it up. Now, obviously, that was quite a bit of work, but at least it shows the strength of the boiler mountings. And of course, the group there has got a reinforced plate behind it, mounting that. So, all in all, pretty good. Fairly simple inside. easy to work on in terms of simplicity. Space for some areas means you've just got to take one or two components out to get to them. The boilers themselves have sealed-in heating elements. They're Incloy 800, high quality, long life, so you shouldn't be any worry about needing to change them or anything like that. Obviously, if they do go, you have to buy a boiler. But that's one of the penalties for trying to get minimum space. They're high quality steel boilers, ASI 316L, low corrosion steel, Incloy 800 elements. So as I say, very, very long life. There should be no reason for a heating element to really fail early or really much within the life of the machine. That should be a fairly rare occurrence for these elements. But it does make it very, very space efficient and allow the use of very large boilers, which I particularly like. So that's, as I say, one last thing, almost everything is mounted on this bottom plate, and almost everything can be removed via undoing screws at the bottom plate. So as long as you can access the bottom of the sheet, things just lift out here quite easily. Obviously with boilers and things, you've got to take pipes and that out. And this machine's still a bit hot because my bit of tubing arrived, my replacement tubing, and I thought I'd fit it, which is why I did the cutout on the water tank. Okay, not really much else to show. It's a very, very simple machine. This is why I had the machine apart. It was to fix the technical issue with this tube to replace the previous tube, and the complex technical issue was just the previous one was too bloody small, and this one isn't, and fits correctly. I had a temporary plastic one there instead of this silicone one, and that was sort of on the verge of melting, so I ordered a silicone tube to fix it. As you can see, I cut the slot out, not only to ease the tube entry, which I needed to do, but also to make the water tank easier to move out, because when tubes are through two holes and you bend them, they sort of bend out and get in the way, whereas when they're in the slot, you can bend them out the way, I think, a little bit more effectively and prevent it fouling the water tank so badly. So that's why I did it. And let's get the water tank over here. This is the water tank, and it'll just fit on there, and that top will go on. And obviously I'll cut this tube to length because I'm mean. I don't want to cut it any longer than I need to because it could be useful. So that's the machine almost back together.